I tried to outsmart the yellow taxi by trying to call a taxi via an app. Anyone listening and watching, please don't do that. Just go for a yellow taxi. So let me give you some context. I started my business in 2020, a business consultancy where I literally solve problems of companies. In 2020, 2021, my business was picked up by the Business Insider, which is a large business publication, and I had my own feature. Jump forward 2023, the same journalist that interviewed me was then working for this company. This company wanted to bring someone to host a workshop, and she got in touch. It was about 5-6 months in the process. Proposals, conversations, talking, bidding, having to adjust prices, and in the end they said, yes, we want you and we'd love for you to come to the USA. Now at that point I was like, I would also love to come to the USA, and so I started planning. I got this opportunity around January 2024 and I was leaving in March. So the first thing I did was really book my flights at times that were convenient for me. Now back then I was doing the Everyday Hustle with the BBC Asia Network on Monday, but I wanted to make sure that I landed in New York at a decent time so I could have dinner and just enjoy what New York had to offer. And normally I do this at least a day or two before the actual business activity is going to take place, so I can climatize myself and just enjoy the experience and not having to panic, especially because then my ADHD brain goes on fire. So anyways, come out of the BBC around 1, I think my flight was around 4, should have landed in New York for good dinner time, but didn't because of flight delays. And then I tried to outsmart the yellow taxi by trying to call a taxi via an app. Anyone listening and watching, please don't do that. Just go for a yellow taxi. After waiting for 1 hour and paying the app for money, nothing came. So I had to go and grab a yellow taxi. And it was the best thing to happen to me. It was a blessing in disguise. Why? Because one, I got that Sex and the City experience that everyone is after, you know, that New York cab. You can obviously reference other movie shows in America, but that's the one that I truly remember being all about the taxi. Second was I got to speak to a local from New York who gave me great tips and tricks. And 3, it was safe. And that's really important as a business traveler. I got to the hotel and fell straight to sleep because I was tired and I didn't want to eat and I just wanted comfort. So day 1 actually begins. Day 1, I decided to wake up early and just check my emails, do my admin, get my business things in order. Remember, I'm there for business. Business always comes first as priority. And so I spent about 2.5 hours just making sure my proposals were as they should be, my presentation was on point, and I hadn't missed anything. It was then time for breakfast. And luckily, I've become a running girly right now because I've got a pair of trainers and I love to go on a jog. So I jogged from the hotel that I was staying in to Times Square, which was about 15 minutes. It really wasn't that long. But during that time, I really got to see the sights of New York in a different way. It was safe. It allowed me to travel solo. It meant that I wasn't scared to be myself or be by myself, which many of us are when we're traveling for the first time, especially for business, or we're traveling by ourselves. Got to Times Square, saw it first thing in the morning when it wasn't super busy, but then everyone is just running to go to work. And I'm like, where are you running to? But then it makes no sense because I'm from London, right? So we're running as well. Took a couple of pictures, selfies, and asked strangers to take a picture of me and then ran back. I read online that it's really important to go to New York Deli. And so next to the hotel, there was a New York Deli. I had a New York Deli breakfast, a veggie bagel, fresh with potato and cheese. I think it cost me like $9, but it was definitely worth it. After that, again, went and did some work. I did so much work that day because the next day I had the business workshop and I just wanted to make sure that I was where I need to be, prepped, ready, and centered, because you don't want to panic, especially when someone has paid so much money for you to be there. You want to give it your 110%, and that's really important, especially in the world of business. Earlier that year, so around February, I went to Qatar for Web Summit and I met a few people that live in New York, Colin, JD, just to name a few. JD actually worked for the New York Stock Exchange. So when I messaged him saying, hey, I'm coming over, he said, why don't you come to the New York Stock Exchange? Because most people don't, but they should. And so I walked from my hotel to the New York Stock Exchange, which took about an hour. but I was able to go past like New York University, which is epic because it's in all the movies and you're like, you have no reference to it because you've never been to New York, but then I saw it for real life and I was like, hey, this is where everyone wants to go. Great, right? Like, this was great. I went to a couple of bookstores, cafes. I went past Union Park and saw people playing chess. Now in England, you don't really have people playing chess in the park, but in New York you do. So I started having a conversation with these people just to understand their stories, and they're mega smart. What no one tells you though is you have to pay to play chess, and I am not a chess player, but I also didn't have time, so I couldn't experience that, but hopefully I will next time. I walked through the financial district to the New York Stock Exchange and just had such a great time taking it all in. People were in ties and suits and brown shoes. They were running around. You were watching the trades up and down live. You were seeing people ring the bell, which was an epic experience. You were also making connections. So whilst JD was working, I just wandered around and spoke to people and understood what they do, how they got there, and what their career journey was. And it was great because during that time, I got to meet Peter Tuchman, who is the Einstein of Wall Street, and he said I could interview him, but we'll get to that in just a moment. After the New York Stock Exchange, JD said we should go and eat a cookie. And I was like, that's a bit weird. Like, that's not normally where, you know, if someone comes to England, I'm not like, hey, let me go and buy you a cookie. Like, no one's taking anyone to Millie's Cookies in the UK, right? At least not in 2024. But anyway, so they have insomnia cookies, which were really good. I had a basic biscuit, cinnamon and sugar cookie. It was so good that I probably went back 3 times during the whole experience. After that, it got to dinner time. I grabbed a quick dinner from the deli and just went home. Why? Because the next day was business day, and it was so important to make sure that you have a good night's sleep, that you are fresh for the morning, and that you are prepared. Day 2. I woke up early and did everything I needed to do for business because it's the big day of delivery. The reason why I've been invited to New York was to host a half-day work king session and workshop for senior execs and leaders and the CEO who are meeting each other for the first time after working remotely during the pandemic. Some of them were new, some of them had never known each other, never met each other, and so they were coming from like Asia, America, the UK, just to name a few spaces. And I was like, wow, they're coming not just for their workshop, but also for my workshop. I have to show up as the best version of myself. Some ways that I do that: wake up early, have a good routine, shower, get ready, and just feel your space. Go and have a great breakfast. I normally like some comfort food, so I went for a croissant. Don't want to overeat. Croissant, yogurt, coffee, and then headphones by myself, listening to some good music, normally those kind of 2010, 2011 albums. I live in that era even today. And then I wear my pal suit. During my get ready with me, I did try to film a vlog. So I'm getting ready for my big workshop that I've come to New York for. And I just want to talk through some of the prep that I do before I go out and deliver such workshops. The most important thing is that I have a good night's sleep. I think people tend to stay up late, you know, similar to like when we were in school, or maybe during exam time, we're like, oh, you're gonna cram everything in before the next day. Don't really believe in that, so try and get 8 hours. Wake up early, have a nice cup of tea or warm drink, definitely have some lemon water in the morning, and then I tend to wear something that makes me feel confident. So today I've got my green suit on, take things quite slowly, so have a nice shower in the morning, and then just do the lightest makeup possible. So mascara, blusher, and the lips, like you'll see in a second. In terms of the prep for the workshop itself, I go through my content first thing and just make sure that it all makes logical sense and that there's definitely a process in my thinking. I then practice it out, even if that's just talking to myself and pretending like I'm going through it. I also sit there for a couple of minutes and visualize what it might be for the room and the attendees. So closing my eyes for like 3 to 5 minutes and just thinking it through, and true actually to some extent. And then also just ensuring that I go and do a last check through my data set, because I collect people's requirements before I deliver any workshop. Just ensuring that it not only makes sense, but it meets the overall objective. I did the workshop. It was very, very good. very good. It was actually one of the best workshops they said they had. People were converted, right? They were like, we did not believe in diversity inclusion or leadership. We didn't understand what allyship was, but you have come and given us real action points. We're super grateful. Even the CEO said it was awesome. So job well done. When you are going for business and business traveling, your priority is the business that you are going for or business that you are with. And so they need to be your priority in every shape and form. It was imperative for me to do a great job, actually, just to make sure that we have, commercially that it's worth their investment, but also because that's how you gain opportunities, and word of mouth references are so important. Plus, it opens up doors for you to work with them in the future. So I'm currently exploring how I can keep working with them, which is amazing. So all the hard stuff is done. We're still on day 2 in the afternoon. Prior to coming to New York, I reached out to people on LinkedIn. Literally went on my connections, filtered with people in New York, sent them a DM to say, hey, I'm coming to New York during these dates. Would you be free for a coffee or a tea or a bagel, right? Whatever it is, whatever your kind of food is of choice. And I had so many people coming back to me that I was so grateful. One person that came back was a colleague who worked at LinkedIn. So I actually got to see the LinkedIn offices and the Empire State Building via LinkedIn, because that's where they are. The second person was Cassie. So after LinkedIn, I went to Cassie. Cassie is a lady who's so impressive, and she's running her own community group. Plus, she's working for this tech recruitment business, and she's from England. So we had that in common. And she took me to her favorite sushi place, which is so nice, right? Because you don't have to think as a local, but also there's a lovely story to it. So she was telling me about this great sushi place she used to go to when she first started coming to New York and working, and how it was a really cheap eat, but it was so good in terms of taste and quality, and I totally agree. And then after saying goodbye to Cassie, I met Colin. So Colin, I also met at Web Summit Qatar, and he is an editor at Adweek, which was amazing. So we just went shopping. I was like, I just want to see the shops. Colin was great because it was such a good laugh, and I also got some great insight as to where advertising, marketing, and influencer trends are going in the USA versus England. So that's like really important for my work because my business is built on personal brand. Anyways, bought a really cute dress from Banana Republic for $30, which maybe is like £25 or something, but good find. After that, I was just tired, so I just went home. There was nothing else. When I mean home, I mean the hotel. After that, I was just tired, so I went to the hotel and just fell asleep because it'd been a long day and my brain was tired and it'd been overworked, and I was in New York, and that's really when it hit me that I was in New York. The next day, so day 3, I actually checked out from the hotel that I was in, so St. James's Hotel near Times Square, and checked into the Walker Hotels in SoHo. Why? Because I wanted to be a new space, and that means that you can explore more of the city. 2, I wanted to be more central to, near Chinatown to Manhattan, walking distance from the financial district, so that I can explore new sites. And 3, I wanted to be in a more cost-effective location. So when you're going on business trips, something to bear in mind is they don't cover all the hotel accommodation because they're just covering the bit that you are going to work for them and work with them for. So the rest was in my budget. And so I had a budget. This hotel cost me about $250 a night, which is a lot of money, but not a lot of money for New York. And also, as a solo female traveler, I wanted to be safe and secure and in a location that really served me and was walking distance from everything. So this definitely was. So day 3, I just checked into the hotel and I wandered the streets. I went into like every bakery I could find, every deli shop I could find. I didn't really do any content during that time. I just wanted to really explore the sites and be present in the moment. And I think a lot of that is lost because we're like, let's create a vlog. Even this I'm filming afterwards, after really enjoying the experience, just to make sure that I am in the moment and taking it in. Otherwise you lose a sense of self and a sense of perspective through like the lens, and that isn't great for memory or for experience, or if you just want to be a true traveler, right? You want to be in that moment and you want to do stuff. I also went to sleep early, so if you know me by now and if you see me on Instagram, I'm in bed by like 9 p.m. I don't do late night work anymore, late night anything. I'm in bed by 9, I'm awake around 6. I like to do things early because that's where my energy is and it's a good time. So day 4 was heavy. Day 4 was a heavy day. Why? Because I had filled up my whole calendar networking. What I hadn't realized is I was going back and forth in the city. So I woke up early And the plan was to have breakfast with Lydia, who works for Penguin. She's an editor. That was near Central Park. This way I got to see Central Park, so I went there an hour early and it was epic. I mean, it made sense, right? I've watched Made in Manhattan, I've watched Gossip Girl. There's so much reference to Central Park. Friends is an example, but I have no idea what Central Park was or is. But I just sat there for an hour with the ducks, with the swans, people watching, just watching strangers, making up stories in my own brain, and just like seeing the clouds move. That's all I did. And it was so peaceful and relaxing. It was like meditation for me. Before I went to go meet Lydia, I just sat in Central Park and had a great time. Talked to a few strangers. I do like a good stranger conversation, where we took pictures for each other, because that's also what you do when you are picture friends, right? Is I didn't really carry a tripod with me, so the best thing to do was to ask somebody to take a picture of me and repay them the favour. With Lydia, I had a PB&J, because there's that song, peanut butter jelly time. So that's kind of where I was at. It's just peanut butter and jelly with a nice herbal tea before I met Tim from lunch. So Tim is actually an exec at Zoom. I had the pleasure of interviewing him for London Tech Week a few years ago, and we stayed in touch. So we went to a recommendation of his. It's a small Mexican family-owned restaurant that he used to go as a child. Again, I would have never walked into it, never walked past it. It wasn't even somewhere that I knew, because it's not like, you know, front and center on a map, but it was so nice. And then you had that experience of like, oh, I've seen this in the movies. I've seen this where they're eating this great hearty food. I've always wondered what they're eating and why. It's so good. And then I've seen like New York PD walk in with their accents, because obviously they're American, and you just have that whole movie scene. You're kind of watching it being like, hey, I've seen this play out on the internet or on TV, and now I'm living in it. That was really good. And then after that, I had a little bit of a moment where my tummy started hurting because I had woman pains. And so the hotel was so nearby, that was the whole point of having a nearby hotel, that I went and laid down and had a nap. Really important, right? That way I just didn't stress and I wasn't fussed, and I just enjoyed the resting period. In the evening, I met Nicole, who is the founder of FinTech is Femme. Nicole actually interviewed me for a Forbes article through Twitter. A few years ago, we kept in touch, so I DM'd her as well when I was going to be like, hey, let's hang out. She lives in Brooklyn, so she came to the New York side of New York. And we met at a Thai restaurant that she recommended. It was really good, great conversation. And because you are in similar spaces, we had a really good, deep intellectual conversation where we could share like salaries and budgets and book deals and, you know, running a business, because we're both like in a similar space. And it was great also to gain perspective from what's happening in the US and what opportunities there lie and what's happening in the UK, in case we could help each other out, or in case we ever moved to that side of the world. Day 5. So last full day in New York, and I literally just wanted to eat my way around town. That was the whole point. So in the morning I had a jog to Brooklyn Bridge. It was about a 20-minute jog, but again, great way to see the sights, stay active, and just experience it from a different perspective. So Brooklyn Bridge, it says, is around 1.83 kilometers. I didn't have time to go all the way back and forth, but I went to the middle, and that was good enough for me. You got to see the skyline of New York. You got to enjoy yourself in between Brooklyn and New York, which means that now I have Brooklyn to explore next time I go, and I will be going. But you also got to see the architecture and the colours, the browns, the bricks, the blues that New York has to offer, plus the river, which was so nice. Jogged back, and I was really fortunate that based on the first conversations I had in New York Stock Exchange, remember I mentioned Peter Tuchman, he invited me to interview him and a couple of great other people at the New York Stock Exchange. So I went back that day, did all my interviews, had an awesome time before taking the subway and going to the Whitney Museum of Art. Now, the Whitney Museum of Art is in the Meatpacking District in Manhattan. I definitely recommend it. Prior to coming, again, I did research. I asked questions. I asked for help. I, DM'd people to be like, hey, I'm going to New York. Do you have any insights that you could share? Tiana from the Female Narratives, who's a co-founder of the Female Narratives, a collective I'm part of, she said that there's actually free tickets to the museum on Fridays. And so I was like, well, I love a freebie. They love a freebie. And I like art and museums, and it's a good way to be cultured, so let's go. Exhibitions were awesome. I learned so much. I didn't use my phone. I didn't really take that many pictures. I just stood and explored and just let my mind wander in a safe and kind of creative environment. One thing I did pick up on was there was an artist exhibition by Harold Cohen, who apparently was British, and he actually used a model that he trained by AI called Aaron to create art. So this is about 30 years ago, using AI to create art. How impressive, given the work that I'm doing. It was one of those use cases, and I'm like, hey, AI is nothing new. We've been using it. We just haven't really learned or taught about how we've been using it. Forget just using ChatGPT, what else is happening in the world? And since coming back, I've just been upskilling myself in how we can use AI to create efficiencies and processes and have a great time. Anyway, but you don't really want to hear about that. There's so many more interviews around that if you are interested. After the museum, I walked home, or I walked back to the hotel from the museum to my hotel, which was about an hour and a half. Went to a really cute Italian family-owned restaurant that I just found on the way, and that was open. They had an awesome pizza, tiramisu. I definitely recommend just walking into spaces and seeing if you vibe with it, taking a seat, having a quick nibble. If you don't love it, walk away. But if you do, you're giving back to local economy, which is really important for business and business traveling too. Last day I woke up early and I realized that I still have a lot of eating to do around New York, and I haven't eaten enough. So I haven't really experienced it in the way that I could. So I went for it. I walked from SoHo to Union Park, where I'd been before, and walked into different pastry places and just tried whatever their kind of favorite was on the menu. I realized that I still hadn't really intensely had a cheesecake. So I walked to Aileen's Cheesecake, which Google told me was really good, one of the best. Took 2 cheesecakes. I went and sat in a park, just ate them with my fork and spoon before I walked to Chinatown. Explored Chinatown and ate 2 pizza slices. 1 pizza slice was $6. It's very expensive in New York. I don't really know what you're doing to us, but I still paid, right? $12 on pizza. And it wasn't even the whole large, you can get a big family pizza in the UK for $12. So it was a bit much, but definitely worth it. I went to Trader Joe's. I've always wanted to go. I love going to supermarkets when I travel, and bought a load of goodies for my family, and then just ran back to the hotel, showered, got ready. It was either taking a taxi to the airport or taking a subway. I chose a subway. What people don't tell you is New York subways don't really have escalators or elevators, and also no one's really trying to help you down the subway. So I took 23 kg up and down the subway. That's why you go to the gym, so it was all okay. Let's just call it exercise. And took the train, which was 1/10 of the price, to get to the airport. And at the airport, I went and checked in, went to the lounge, chilled, had cheesecake from Junior's, which apparently is the OG cheesecake, but I wasn't able to go in Times Square, so I had it from the airport. The airport itself doesn't actually have an American Express lounge, which they don't tell you, but they do have a restaurant that uses the lounge voucher. And so that's where I was. All in all, I loved the fact that I went to New York. And I loved the fact that I went to New York even more because I went as a business traveler. I literally went for business. The way that I gained the opportunity was 1, to start a business, 2, put myself out there, 3, shout about the great work that I'm doing, 4, take interviews, and 5, keep myself open for any opportunity. And all opportunities say yes, and then you'll figure out later. My yes was, yes, I can deliver this work, I can build out this proposal. It was a lot of back and forth, chasing, following up, not being afraid to ask for feedback, but also keeping yourself in touch and in contact with the next person and saying, here's some updates that you might be interested in case you do want to leverage my services. And once that booking goes through, you do nothing but prioritize this client. And if you have a bunch of clients, and you have a team to support you too, but in this case, it was just myself and that client, because that's how I designed my business structure. And they were the priority: emails, calls, workshops, questions. can be a business explorer whilst being an active business traveler, and those hand in hand make for a great business person.